Welcome. I am here with my husband Joshua. He is a registered dietitian who works with dialysis patients as well as general population clients across the country every week through Faye and Nourish. After hearing the same questions come up over and over again, I thought it'd be fun to ask him the questions I think everyone wants to hear. What does a dietitian actually do?
Have you always wondered that?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of that before you even met me?
Dietitians?
Yeah.
When I think of dietitian, I've always just thought a dietitian gives a meal plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Had you ever worked with one or knew anybody who was a dietitian before?
Before you, I would hear about dietitians,
Yeah.
but I never reached out to one. I never cared about my not health, but I would say I never cared about getting a meal plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I always thought they're just there to kind of guide you on what to eat, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically, that's kind of the most well recognized or understood idea of what a dietitian does, which is, have this wonderfully made meal plan or diet plan, give it to the client, counsel them, educate them on what a healthy diet might look like based on their needs, and we shake hands and we part ways. That's kind of how most people think about it.
What would you say you spend most of your time doing?
As a dietitian, I would say I spend most of my time, especially nowadays in 2026, is actually reducing the pressure, anxiety, and the guilt and shame around food, eating, and one's body. Reducing all of that unnecessary pressure from all of this misinformation out there. So a lot of times my sessions end up being more like, tell me a little bit about who you are, what your goals are, and then hearing them kind of be very anxious about what they've been told that they should be doing, what they need to be doing, and then going in there and being like, okay, here's what I know about you, what you shared so far. Here's what everybody has been telling you about XYZ and how to do it, whether it's in their food or their exercise. And here are some things probably you don't need to worry about. And that tends to decrease a lot of the pressure and anxiety around food, eating in their body. And clients absolutely love that.
Do you feel like they typically have the same anxieties or the same fears? I remember one time in the kitchen you told me that I think it was a gentleman who was talking about peptides or seed oils. But do you feel that talking to Nourish and Faye clients, they kind of are fearful of the same things?
Yeah, that's a good point right there. Is as the person, sitting in the chair, talking to, thousands of people across different ethnicities, different cultures, different living in different areas, they're all kind of concerned, interested in kind of a lot of the same things. It's quite interesting because although they might all be concerned about for seed oils, as an example, they have absolutely different circumstances and lives and responsibilities.
That makes sense.
So everybody's kind of worried about, what they're listening and what they're watching and what they're reading on the internet. But what I'm realizing as the dietitian on the other side is, wait a minute, seed oils might be a thing, but let's first talk about who you are. You're probably a parent, probably working with a parent or someone who has 3 kids they got to take care of versus someone who's just in college and they only have their own responsibility and they have more capacity to do certain things and get curious about certain things. So I'm more like, okay, let's pause the seed oils for a second and let's focus on who you are, what are your responsibilities and obligations, and how we can fit something that's more appropriate to what you want to get out of this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like the way you say that everyone has different lives and everyone's different, because me and 3 other girls could be, afraid of sodium, but where I might not be struggling with high blood pressure, but one girl might be. So
Yeah.
It may benefit her for her to lower her sodium intake, where me being fearful of sodium intake is not really, don't be afraid of it.
Yes.
Because it's not hurting you.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah. Because, we've talked about sodium intake, and it really would help my sister to lower her sodium, which she's currently doing right now. and it's benefiting her right now because her high blood pressure has gone down. Where me, I always talk about I don't want to put too much salt in my food because I'm afraid of that, but it doesn't. There's no really effect on me because I don't have it, so don't be afraid of it.
Yeah, it's very contextual. So someone who is a relatively active, younger person, say a collegiate athlete, and they're outside and they're sweating a lot, they might actually need to increase their sodium in some cases. Or if somebody has a particular medical condition that requires them to increase their sodium, which there are medical conditions like that, that's where the sodium would be a little bit different than the next person over.
And would you say, as a dietitian, there is a misconception about you guys?
Yeah, 100%. And my fake clients, nourish clients, and everyone I come across is after we have our session, usually our first introduction session, they're like, wow, like I was really nervous to talk to you. And I was like, really? I was like, why is that? I'm genuinely curious. And they would usually say a couple of things that are very similar. They would say, oh, well, I thought, you were just going to have these very high expectations of me. I thought you were going to judge me the whole time about what I'm eating. A lot of people have this conception or preconception of that we are the food police. So even if you are eating something that is higher calorie, higher saturated fat, we're absolutely going to just judge you because all we do is spend our time every day eating kale salads and we're laughing at the same time. Yes. And that's completely a huge misconception there. The way I look at myself is I'm a husband and a father and someone who's navigating life just like anybody else. But it just happens that I, took the time to attend school for 7 years and learn all things about nutrition and dietetics, and this is part of what I do every day.
Thank you, Joshua. No, it's true. When we first started dating, a lot of my coworkers would say, "Does he try to tell you what to eat?"
Yeah.
Because I was always eating Whataburger, and
sure.
I would pick up like quick food and go back to the office and eat, and sometimes I would skip my meals and. They would tell me, don't let him control what you're going to eat and things like that. But I was like, he's nowhere near that. Yeah. He'll eat a burger with me. He'll eat pizza with me. So it's funny that you say that a lot of people do think that way of you.
Yeah. They feel relieved after having a discussion with me and the type of approach and philosophies that I have around food, eating, and one's body.
I feel that there probably are dietitians that just eat kale salads and laugh.
Yeah,
talk about like what other people are eating. Though.
Yeah, I would chop that up to maybe their personality and then just how they prefer things to be for themselves. And that's the cool part about food, eating, and your body is that you get to decide how you would like to put things together for yourself, insofar it doesn't cause any harm.
Go to the next question. When someone books an appointment with you, what's usually happening in their life?
What I find is it could be a couple of things. I guess it's like you could think of it as a spectrum. And what I'm quickly trying to assess when I'm having a conversation with a new client, whether it's on FAE, Nourish, or even in my everyday practice as a kidney dietitian, is the first thing that I'm really paying attention to is how stable is their life right now. That's the first thing that I'm looking at. And what I mean by stability is, do they have a lot of financial stress right now, relationship stress? Do they have a lot of work stress right now? Are they in the process of moving to a different city, to a different state? Are they getting married? Are they expecting a kid? All of these major real life milestones or things that they might be encountering, I'm quickly trying to assess that. Obviously, if they'll disclose it with me, and I'm not trying at the same time to be completely nosy, but I frame it in a way that, look, in order to pursue the things that you want to for your health or what you want to get, let's first understand where you are right now and your capacity and your bandwidth. Because, for example, again, like I mentioned to you, a mother who's taking care of 3 children at home, for me to expect them to have this perfect diet day in and day out and demand that of them, or even have them demand that of themselves, is unrealistic, and they're going to get very frustrated very quickly and think that they are at fault for not keeping up with this diet or this exercise program So first, I got to get to know the person. So it's almost just like, let's understand how, the stability of your life right now. And depending on those things, we can start to collaborate together to put forth the best approach for you right now. A good example would be teachers. So I think I was sharing that with you a while back, which is teachers, when I'm working with teachers as it relates to their food, eating in their body, they absolutely are extremely, most of the time, not everybody, and everybody's a little bit different, but most of the time teachers are very busy during the semester. They have a lot of pressure around it, especially during the final exams. They're grading a whole bunch of papers, student behavior, things of that nature, and they don't really have a lot of capacity to think outside of that. But come summertime, when they're finally out of the semester mode of being a teacher, they finally get a little bit more like, wow, I got some capacity here. Man, I can think about going to getting a gym membership. I can think about planning and preparing my meals a little bit more appropriately versus I'm just constantly rushed. So basically, I'm trying to figure out what is the best plan for them in their particular season. And someone can have several weeks of a season, several months of a season, even sometimes several years of a season. And what I've learned is sometimes all their plan needs is an update. So instead of thinking that you've either failed or you passed, or you're doing good or you're doing bad, it's rather, let's take a look at what your current plan is looking like and how is your life matching up with that. And we might need to update it and adjust or modify. That way you can continue forward.
And would you say, like, these people that are booking with you, so the people that are watching, would you say that typically or majority of the time it's people coming to you on their own, or is it because doctors are referring them to you? So that way the people that are watching and maybe want to reach out to a dietitian but don't know, like, am I the right candidate? Like,
sure.
Who reaches out to you typically?
Yeah. So nowadays it's a really cool thing that insurance companies have realized that, hey, look, we can include dietitian services as part of the insurance coverage. So now this has opened up a lot of areas where people who have a certain type of insurance, all they need to do is go onto something like a FAY website or a Nourish website, type in their insurance, and within a matter of seconds, their insurance, FAY or Nourish will talk to their insurance and give them a quote for how much they could expect to pay out of pocket based on what the insurance is going to cover. And so a lot of them are coming from, now more than ever, are coming from doctor offices. So typically a client will go to a doctor, the doctor will do their routine or annual assessment, they'll get blood work, and say, for example, the doctor tells them, hey, look, you have a very high cholesterol, or your A1C is a little elevated, so you're in the pre-diabetes area. You might want to consider talking to a dietitian before we start you on any aggressive drug therapy. And so now this has been a great way for individuals to first try to navigate it as best as they can through diet, lifestyle modification before they have to be placed on any type of drug therapy, unless it's, of course, under the doctor's discretion.
And for those watching, it doesn't necessarily have to be a doctor referring. If they have received blood work and the doctor wants to put them on a medication, they can also tell the doctor, I would like to see a dietitian.
Yes, exactly. That's the cool part, is that you don't need a doctor's order. You don't need the doctor to refer you to a dietitian. Nowadays, you simply just go on any of those websites I mentioned, type in your name, your insurance, and all that, and then you can literally meet with the dietitian without even speaking to a doctor.
And so we can probably drop the links in the comment section and allow them to click and get their
quote.
Yep,
absolutely.
Okay. What's the very first thing you try to understand about someone whenever you're talking with them?
What are their major responsibilities and obligations, not only to themselves, but also to others? Because I think going back to that other way I responded, which is if I have a college student who just their responsibility is just to go to school, and maybe they have a part-time job, maybe they don't, really quickly trying to figure out, okay, how does your day look like? Give me a snapshot of from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. Help me understand how your day-to-day or day in the life actually looks like. As soon as I'm able to really go in there and get a decent representation of how their day-to-day looks like, then I can go in there and collaborate with them, provide feedback, and be like, okay, here's where we're going to start. Here's how it's going to look like, because I actually have an insight to how their day-to-day looks like, their month-to-month looks like, and it's a lot more doable for them in the long run.
And I know this would be much easier on you. Um, Whenever they're coming to you and they know what they want, which is most of the time you tell me they want a meal plan.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you just get your job done and over with and just give them the meal plan?
You know, if I could just have AI create thousands of meal plans and spread them out to thousands of people across the world, I would absolutely hit that button over and over and be done with it and make millions of dollars. But I think I've been there and done that. You know, as a certified personal trainer, you know, almost 9 years ago, I used to do that. I would, you know, sit down with somebody, ask them how many pounds do you want to lose? What's your goals? You know, when do you want to get there? What's the timeline? And once I learned their height, their weight, and all that, here you go. Here's your certain calorie allotment. Here are the meals that you're going to be having. You know, chicken breast, asparagus, and brown rice or sweet potato. And you're gonna have those meals at these particular times, and very prescriptive, very directive. Like, here's what you're going to do. This is what you need to do in order to see the results. Here's that meal plan. Good luck. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And if you don't do it, it's because you lack motivation, discipline, and willpower. And if you don't continue to take care of what you need to, you're never going to get what you want. That was typically the conventional and traditional way of doing things. But what I realized doing this for almost 10 years now, getting a little bit of gray hair, losing my hair, I gained a little wisdom. And I realized that, wow, we really need to understand who the person is, what do they have going on in their life right now, and how can we set them up for the long haul rather than just 30 days or even 90 days.
And I love how you put it, because recently my sister, Sabrina, she was on there was a pill that you get on to help lose weight. And it was specifically to help her lower her high blood pressure, I think the triglycerides or something like that. Can't say that word. But she was trying to lower certain things from her blood work. And so they put her on a pill, and she started to get on a diet. And every day for about 2 weeks, she was sending me like the perfect picture of a plate, healthy, low fat, no sodium. And recently she told me that it disgusts her now to look at her plate, because she's tired of eating the same thing over and over. And we talked about it, and you said, well, that's one of the reasons why I don't like to give someone a meal plan, because they're not going to stay on the meal plan, and then they're going to just default back to where they were, and you like to set them up to be successful with what their goal is.
Whenever I'm working with a new client or even my existing clients, I'm not thinking of them in the next 30 days or in the next 90 days. I actually am very confident that they're going to get everything that they want, insofar as that they keep showing up and they're engaged and they're talking about all these things. They're updating me about what they're getting curious about. I'm actually thinking of them in 4 years from now. I'm already looking that far about, okay, based on what this person, their obligations, their responsibilities, their trajectory. Obviously, we don't know the future, but it's just, okay, if I were to, you know, say we were to end our sessions now and I were to see them in 4 years from now and I would catch up with them, you know, I would feel like I have failed them as their dietitian if they just absolutely reverted back and they had no skill sets, no way of navigating the day-to-day, because I only gave them a list of foods that they had to rely on for the rest of their lives until they were 95. It's just not realistic. I've yet to see, you know, any of the grandparents out there who are 95 years old who are still on a meal plan that their dietitian gave them, you know, 30, 40 years ago. So it just doesn't make sense. And so I decided to say, you know what, let's go ahead and set you up for the long haul. We can definitely find ways to be a little bit more aggressive in your weight loss journey if you like. Say, for example, you got a wedding coming up and you want to just make sure you meet that timeline. There are tools and things that we use to help people navigate weight loss, as an example, a little bit faster. But for the most part, I'm trying to build the confidence. I'm trying to increase their skill set to navigate food eating in their body for the rest of their lives, essentially.
So is this complete? I'm just very curious. For those who may need a dietitian, like because they're on, I guess, medical therapy, is it different? Do you talk to them specifically differently? Or do you have to provide them a meal plan? Or you kind of stick to what you truly believe in to set them up?
Yeah, so whether or not somebody has chronic conditions, acute conditions, what you're referring to is medical nutrition therapy.
Yes.
So essentially is, for example, if somebody has high blood pressure or type 2 diabetes, is my approach or philosophy the same? And I would say on a human level, absolutely. The approach and philosophy is absolutely the same because they are just like anybody else with or without medical conditions, who have desires, who have emotions, who have responsibilities and obligations. And so I view them, treat them, use an approach that is the same to everyone else, whether or not they have a certain medical condition. Now, in terms of, like you said, are they on a special meal plan? That's where we start to learn first of what they're doing, okay? And that would apply to everybody, which is the same thing, which is before we go and tell you, okay, your sodium is going to be restricted, you're going to have this much potassium, or you're going to do this or that, I first want to know, regardless of the medical diagnosis, is what are you currently doing?
Okay.
Because people have been eating since they were an infant.
Yes.
And so they've been eating foods and meals the way they've enjoyed in the quantities that they wanted at the times that they wanted for decades now. So they're actually really good at knowing what they enjoy, what they eat, what times do they eat. And that's what I like to get curious about first is like, look, you're the expert here. I'm just here to guide you. Take me through a day. How did yesterday look like? What did you have when you woke up? Did you have a breakfast? Did you not? Did you skip it because you were rushed? First, I want to understand their dietary patterns. And then once we do, I can collaborate with them and say, okay, out of what you know about this medical condition and what you've heard, what have you been trying to do first to adjust or modify things to get you what you want, whether it's a reduction in your blood pressure? Again, I ask them, I get curious. I become the person who's essentially interviewing them and wanting to know about where they're at, what is their current knowledge, what things have they tried in the past, any particular diets. That way I can say, okay, here's the feedback, and then we can collaborate from there.
And so I know we have touched on this a little bit, so if you're not changing their food and what they've heard according to TikTok and the Reels, where do you start? Can you be like very specific on where you like typically like to start with everyone?
Yeah, I could definitely be specific. So, for example, if I have a client who was diagnosed or has been living with type 2 diabetes, as an example, first I want to know, okay, how did your Monday look like? How did your Tuesday look like? To the best that they can recall, because I certainly don't remember what I ate, yesterday. And so we try to navigate that first, and they'll lay it out for me. They'll say, okay, so I work in an office and I have to be at work and my commute is about 10 minutes. And so I got to be out the door by 6 a.m. And generally I will have just a coffee and rush out the door because I wake up late and I'm always rushing. I was like, okay, how do you feel? How do you feel during that time when you're just waking up, rushing, just grabbing a coffee and going? And they'll tell me, they're like, well, I feel decent. I feel like I have energy and I'm able to do everything I need to do. But I am absolutely hungry by the time lunchtime comes around. And at that point, I hadn't planned anything. So I'm just rushing to the nearest fast food joint or doing a DoorDash and getting something that's very high calorie, high sodium. And then I feel gross after that. And then I start to learn. I was like, okay, well, have you had breakfast before? And they'll share with me, yes. I used to have breakfast when I would go to bed a little bit earlier. Then I could wake up a little bit earlier and maybe have a boiled egg, maybe a toast. And I've done that before. I was like, okay, so what do you think is kind of preventing you from getting to bed a little bit earlier to go ahead and prep those meals? And they'll tell me, they'll say, well, it's just right now I just want to stay on my phone and scroll a little bit longer, or I'm taking care of my friend's dog. Like whatever the situation is, I could quickly find out, okay, let's see what's actually happening. You tell me, what would you like to do? Because again, I tell them oftentimes, I say, look, don't do this for me. Don't do this for a doctor. Do this for yourself. And what do you think you could realistically do effective tomorrow or this week that you would do to get you what you want? Whether it's a reduction in your A1C, reducing some body fat, and you're the pro here. You've done this before. You've tried these things. What do you think has worked for you the most? and get curious about that, and then we can see how it goes. I always like to share with my clients, let's run an experiment this week and both see what happens, rather than saying, oh, you must eat 5 vegetables this week. That's going to be your goal. And if you don't do that, you probably just don't want it bad enough. And here we go again in that cyclical, frustrating cycle that many people do.
And so, do you have a plan that you typically like to start them off with? I know you said you like to kind of challenge them on what they did the day before and try to get them back to when they were feeling their best, and try to help them see what's where's that gap, or what's holding them back from it. But is there also something that you provide them, or kind of help give them a guide to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So this starting place that I like to encourage practically almost all my clients, depending on what's going on, is what I like to call the big 3. Okay. And this is a framework essentially to help people start to make sense of how their day is going as it relates to food eating in their body. The good news about this big 3 is that everyone has been doing this since the time of birth, essentially. Every day we have the human's construct of 24 hours, right? And from those 24 hours, we're awake a certain amount of hours. Some days we're awake for 10 hours, other days we're awake for 18 hours. And obviously it changes day to day. But for the most part, you're awake for a certain amount of hours, from the time you open your eyes to the time you close your eyes. And during that time that you are awake, we are getting a very powerful signal to our brain and our stomach at some point, okay? And that signal is called hunger. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on these days, interviewing, having so many sessions with clients across the last 10 years, is that people, I don't know where it's come from, people think that hunger is a bad thing. They feel actually bad for being hungry. They feel guilty, they feel ashamed for admitting that they're hungry. It's not everybody, but it seems like a majority of people.
I'm hungry again. I'm
hungry again, or I'm hungry at all. That is looked at as you're a fat person, you're gluttonous, I don't know, it's just weird. But what I like to encourage all my clients is, if we did not have that innate, strong signal, we all would have died off as a species a long time ago. If we never got that urge, that strong motivation to go seek out food, we all would have died off a long time ago as a species. So I encourage or take the position of hunger is a really good, strong, and positive and healthy signal that lets us know, hey, it's time to eat. It's time to get some calories in our digestive tract. It's time to get some nutrients in there. And so essentially, I don't have people like monitor or journal their when they get hungry and things of that nature. Although that might be a tool for certain people, what I usually just make it very simple for them and say, look, anytime you decide to have a meal, a beverage, or a snack that contains calories, all I want you to do is mark 1 tally. Okay, so this starts to frame their day with, okay, how many times throughout a day am I having some sort of meal, snack, or beverage that contains calories? And all through your waking hours, you should have several eating events, is what I like to call them. And so I encourage my clients is, let's just first get an idea of how often hunger and deciding to have a meal is showing up for you. And it's different for everybody. Some people have 2 eating events in a day where they consciously decide, I'm going to have a meal, a snack, or a beverage for whatever reason. And I just encourage them to get curious about that. Okay. And then over a series of days, we start to learn patterns. We start to learn, okay, I'm noticing I'm having, 4 eating events on a Thursday. And that particular day, I tend to be very stressed because of work, or I didn't get a good night's sleep. And so I noticed I had 4 events that day versus Tuesday, I had 3. Or I had 6 on a Friday. And it's probably because I went out and I wanted to enjoy myself with my friends or family. And so we start to collect this information. They start collecting that information and they start to realize, oh, I see some patterns going on here. So that's part 1 of the big 3. The second thing is, what I encourage my weight management clients to do is to monitor their weight. So we know that it's been demonstrated in the research that if people are to use a self-monitoring tool on a regular basis, not only can they lose the weight, but also potentially keep it off because they regularly self-monitor. And that self-monitoring tool that I encourage my clients is the scale. And so obviously that's can be an emotionally charged topic, which is the scale, right? It's a scary thing, you got to be careful on how you use it because you can end up messed up in the head and it can cause all sorts of disorders. And, and you have different opinions. And then you have other people who are like, no, it's a good tool, yada, yada. I take the approach as this. Look, if you're trying to, for example, lose some body weight, okay, we need to have a way to measure this. And there are multiple ways of measuring it. You could do circumference measurements, your waist, your thighs, your chest over time, and you absolutely could do that. You can do visual progress, so you could take pictures every several weeks and compare it. You can, and then you could use the scale and the reason I like the scale is because it's a very easy tool to administer. There's not much effort, not much work that's required to just hop on that scale, look down, collect your daily number, as I like to say, and move on. And we'll probably talk about how I encourage my clients how to use the scale, and more importantly, how to interpret the scale, probably in another episode. But for now, I encourage my clients to self-monitor regularly using the scale and whatever other ways they like to measure progress across time. A lot of clients like to just use clothes as a way to measure whether or not they're getting what they want, as an example, losing body fat. So if they feel like their clothes are feeling looser, they had to sell some clothes. I have plenty of clients who do that as well. And the last and final thing is, out of the big three, is movement. And so every day you get out of bed, you place your feet on the ground, the forces of gravity are applied on you, and you're moving around every single day. And so I take the position as a certified personal trainer, dietitian, coach, is that all movement is good movement. I'll say that again. All movement, as soon as you get out of bed, is good movement. Here's why. Because I've worked as a clinical dietitian in the ICU in an acute care setting, a hospital. I used to work with patients who had motor vehicle accidents, multiple fractures. They couldn't get out of bed. They were bed bound. I've worked with clients who had advanced stage cancers where they were having a lot of chemo and radiation therapy and they're very weak and they couldn't get out of bed. They couldn't get out of a wheelchair. Just by them being unable, unfortunately, and very sadly, not being able to get up and move around, their health deteriorated very rapidly. And so when I've seen this as a clinical dietitian is that the very fact that you got up today and you're able to move around, even if it seems like you're still lazy, you label yourself lazy or you didn't do much. No, you actually still did a lot.
That's true.
Because going from immobilization or bedbound or wheelchair bound to now moving around, you wouldn't believe how powerful that is by itself. And the reason I share and take this position is because a lot of people give themselves a hard time that they're not in the gym every single day or they're not doing enough and they put all this extra pressure. And so someone who aspires to, get healthy, improve certain blood test results, immediately what do they do? They go on a strict diet and they go to the gym every day. But if they don't meet up to that standard or that ideal of eating perfectly every single day and going to the gym every single day, they start to have negative emotions around that. So if they didn't get to make the gym that particular day, they feel like a failure. They feel anxious about it, guilty, ashamed. And if they do that for several days on end, no wonder they feel absolutely defeated by then. And they say, you know what, screw it. I can't follow this. Might as well not do anything and revert back to their old ways and their old approach. So again, that's part of the big three that I encourage all my clients to do is I don't prescribe or tell, oh, you need to be getting 10,000 steps a day. You don't need to be doing all this movement. I just say, no, pay attention to what you've already been doing over the last several days and weeks and months. You're going to be moving around somewhat, whether you're a college student, whether you're a stay-at-home mother, anybody, you're going to have a certain level of movement. And all I encourage them to do is simply keep their phone on them or their fitness watch or a tracker and just start noticing how much movement am I doing on a daily basis. We're not setting any step goals or anything like that. We're just simply saying, let's get a baseline for what you're already doing. And the beautiful thing that I really like about the big three is that these are all things that are already happening.
Sure.
Everybody eats every single day. Everybody moves every single day, and everybody weighs a certain amount every single day. So all I'm just encouraging is pay attention to these things. Sure. And you're going to get wonderful amount of information and data from you and only you. And now we can start to establish patterns and then we can start to build off from there.
I like that. So it's very personal to everyone.
Exactly.
So you're talking about you want people to track their eating events and you want them to step on the scale and then also track their movement. In the end, those are your 3.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I like to call the big 3. Have your phone on you to monitor your steps. Every time you decide to have an eating event, just monitor that and you can log it. And then, of course, step on the scale and just monitor your weight, or you can log it as well. But I feel like monitoring is a term that's a lot more encouraging and it brings that curiosity around it rather than you must track every single little thing that you do and for the rest of your life. It's like, let's monitor these things. Yes, you can journal and log some things that you like, but really what we're trying to identify is what's happening. What happened yesterday? What happened today? What happened in the past week? And you can clearly talk about it because you can use this information that is only relevant to you and only you. And we can get curious about, okay, with this information, what do we want to do with it? Do we want to modify anything? Do we want to adjust anything? Or do we want to keep everything the same because it looks like we're heading in the right direction?
Yeah, I love how you put that, because a lot of people have a lot going on in their lives, especially when they're working or they're juggling kids. And so the last thing you want to do is put something on them or make them feel like, oh, this is already too much for me.
Yes.
And then they don't go to the next session, or they just kind of stop right there and they continue what they're doing. But you keep saying pay attention, but I feel like a lot of the people who are listening might be thinking like, well, I already pay attention.
Yeah.
I already pay attention, because I've had a doctor tell me you need to track everything you're eating from morning to night, and I almost feel like that's such a big pressure on me, because I mean, if I eat a meal in the morning and it's eggs and avocado and strawberries and something else, or I add ketchup, and then the next meal it's like I have a baby, so I might forget to write down all those, like a list of those items. So it just seems like a lot. And when the doctor tells me write down everything, I feel like I already pay attention to what I eat. I just need you to
tell me what to do
or help me, because I'm having this issue. And it just seems like I know the majority of what I'm eating is dairy free and gluten, like I don't know, not really gluten stuff, but dairy free and other things like low fat. Because I specifically choose low fat in almost everything I eat. So when she tells me write down everything, it's like I feel like I am paying attention to what I'm eating.
Sure.
And it's not dairy and it's not this. And so I feel like a lot of the viewers or the ones listening are thinking, I already pay attention. But when you say pay attention, specifically why, or what do you mean?
Yeah. So the way I like to approach things in the beginning is, let's just start with the most easiest thing for you to do. And I am very intentional about keeping things easy, because I tell my clients this all the time when I'm having a session with them, which is, look, right now we're on Diet Island, okay? So I don't know if people out there have watched Love Island, where basically it's a whole bunch of people that go to this particular island and then they do all sorts of crazy stuff as it relates to love, right? Or the idea of it. And whenever you think of a traditional diet and exercise, I like to say people think that they're going to go to this diet island where they leave all of their responsibilities and obligations and their kids, and they go to this diet island. They're going to have a personal chef.
They're by themselves.
They're by themselves. They're going to just be everything perfect, and they're going to do it every single day. And then I said, as soon as we get off this call, we're getting off Diet Island and you're going right back into 150 miles per hour. Your kids, your sleep, your work obligations, your stress, your social obligations, your relationships. Oh my gosh, everything's coming at you so fast that anything outside of that is extra or effortful is going out the door. Not because you lack motivation to discipline and willpower, it's just because you can only keep up with so much.
True.
So I have seen this over and over as a dietitian. And so instead I'm saying, look, we're going to build off of what we're going to establish first, this foundation, this baseline. So all I want you to do in the beginning is simply tally how many times you eat in a day. Although that might seem very trivial or elementary, trust me, stick with me, engage the process. And then the cool thing is that you and I, we get to decide if you want to layer on something else. So if somebody is, who feels that they have more increased capacity, they have more bandwidth, they don't really have any kids or anything like that, we can advance them to the next level very quickly. Whereas a mother who's very anxious and guilty, she has a lot of weight to lose, she's pre-diabetes, she has diagnosis of prediabetes. She has 3 kids. But like, look, I get it. Well, I can't even begin to imagine. So here's what we're going to do. Just mark how many times you're eating throughout a day, step on the scale daily, and then also monitor how many steps you're getting, log those things, and then we'll come back and talk about it. And usually they're like, thank you so much. You just make this way more simple and easy that I actually can do, and I can't wait to share with you all that information that I collected. Whereas some individuals, you know, who are high achievers, they don't have any kids, they're like, no, I want the real deal. Take me, like, I want to track calories. I want to do that. I'm like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And let's go and see how that looks like for you. And sometimes they absolutely nail it. And then other times they shared with me what they wanted, but then the following day they got sick. And then it completely derailed everything. And they're just like, oh, like I haven't started anything right now. And they feel a little ashamed and this and that. I was like, no worries. Like, here's what we can do instead while you're waiting. While you're, hopefully you feel better, you still can monitor how many times you eat. And they're like, well, I could do that. I could do that. So sometimes they have to figure out that, you know what, let's build a base first, and then we can always layer on all the cute and fluffy stuff, as I like to say, later. And most importantly, what I'm really trying to do is help people improve their problems. And so what I realized as a dietitian is I want to find the most efficient way to solve your problem first, and then we can always layer on, you know, the wonderful ideas of, you know, having a more nutrient-dense diet, you know, adding more fiber, you know, learning about dietary protein, when to have the most optimized time, or how much protein. We could learn about all that later, but first I want you to build that momentum so you can get those wins, and then also see that you're actually making progress towards what you want. Let's do that first.
And do you find that the clients that you have, maybe the second call, they come back because they are curious about working with you and seeing what else you have to say next, and maybe what their next step might be. But do you also receive, like, I don't know, I guess negative emotions from them? Like, I don't see results. It's been a month. It's been 4 weeks, and I haven't seen results. And like, how do you get them to stay on board?
So how do I work with the client who's very frustrated about not getting closer to what they want, essentially, right? And so the way I normally do this is first figure out what is the frustrating stimulus for them. It might be the number that they're seeing on the scale. It might be that they recently got blood test results and they didn't see any improvement. So first I want to figure out, okay, what exactly is causing them to be very frustrated? And so once I find out what that might be, right, I ask them, or I encourage them, I said, hey, you're actually allowed to express your frustrations. You're a human, and you can absolutely, you know, raise your hands and be very frustrated. You're allowed to do that. Because I'm not trying to build robots here, where it's just like I eat and I exercise and I feel no emotion around any of this. No, I want them to express all the emotions of frustration. And I actually encourage them. I say, you know what? You can actually view frustration as a good thing, not a bad thing. It's good that you're frustrated, that you're not.
It means like they care, right?
Yeah, it means that they care and they want to actually, they're not content and they want to actually improve their situation, you know, right? Their status, their health, or whatever it is for them. And so I frame it that way first, which is, this is good. I'm glad you're frustrated. And then so I acknowledge their frustration. I allow them, I encourage them to give themselves permission to express any types of emotion, but I also caution them. I say, it's what we do with that frustration that can help us or hinder us, right? So if somebody gets frustrated that, for example, they saw a number on the scale on a random Tuesday and the scale went up and they didn't like that, and then they proceed to say, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to eat, you know, high calories today. I'm not going to really care what I'm eating. I'm going to just go get fast food, and I'm not going to exercise because of the scale. That I encourage, like, look, let's take a moment about, you know, doing something like that. And even then I actually say, you know what, go ahead and do that. Get it out that frustration. One meal's not going to, you know, harm you. You know, you didn't get here just because of this one meal that you decided to go crazy with. I said, that's okay. But if it's a repeated pattern, then we really want to start to talk about, okay, why is this causing a lot of frustration to you? Are there realistic expectations around what you're trying to accomplish? That's another big one. I really spend a lot of time from the outset explaining expectations around how we can lower somebody's blood test results, for example, A1C, how typically long that can take realistically, based on what's available and the guidelines that are out there and the research that's available. How long does it take to lose weight on a monthly basis? I really take my time explaining those things, because once we're able to kind of set the expectations, it can manage people's emotions around whether or not they're getting closer to what they want. But again, the way I see it is, you're allowed to be frustrated anytime, anywhere.
And I guess my question, to go back to it, is when a client books with you, the second session, going back to the second session, say you have 5 clients. This is their second session. Mm-hmm. Does weight loss and progress look different for everyone, or does it somewhat look the same?
Yeah. So if we're talking about weight loss, yes, there is some context depending on who the person is.
And if they're actually doing what you're saying,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. If they are paying attention to the things that I encourage them to monitor, to log, or to journal, whatever the case may be. But just from a very, I guess, basic understanding is, let's just take weight loss for an example. What can your average person expect to lose on a weekly basis? And I always start with this. If there is an individual who has a lot of weight to lose, so someone who's very obese, right? We're weighing 300, 400 pounds. That person is probably going to see more weight loss per week than someone who has not that much weight to lose. So say, they're
100 pounds overweight, maybe?
What's that?
Like 40 pounds overweight?
Well, let's just say maybe there's a person who's 5'4", 150 pounds. They're a female, and maybe they got like 10 pounds to lose, right? That person might expect to lose a little bit less than that other person who's 400 pounds and has a lot to lose, right? Because that 400-pound person would probably need to lose over 100 pounds to improve their health, to feel better, to improve their functional capacity, versus this other person only needs about 10 to 12 pounds to lose, and it's not really interfering with a lot of things. And it might be, but I usually start with that, which is, okay, how much body fat or how much weight do you have to lose? Okay. Is it 100 pounds or more? Is it 15 pounds? And then I set the expectations based on who that individual is.
Okay. And I guess I don't want to get stuck on weight loss, because
Sure.
I feel like I like put my question around weight loss. But out of seeing all the clients that you've seen over the years, do you feel like there's a specific category of people that want to meet with you? Or is it regarding health and weight loss and conditions?
Yeah.
Or is it mostly one thing?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I would say, just from a very high level human standpoint, I would say it's essentially just any human on this earth who is suffering in a way that they feel is unnecessary, or they can do something about it. Okay. Whether that's a medical condition or a diagnosis, whether that's just extra body fat, which is resulting in them not really liking the way they look or feel or perform, whether it's,
sometimes it's regarding their blood work.
Regarding their blood work, or a college athlete who wants to improve their performance or wants to gain weight. Right now I'm working with a collegiate baseball player who he's on the lower, he's a thinner guy, and he wants to put on some weight over the off season. And obviously to improve his performance, his speed, his power as a baseball player. But underneath that was very interesting. He actually wanted to stop being bullied for being so thin and not eating so much.
That's interesting. That's
so sad. Again, right there, it all comes down to the human experience, no matter who I'm working with, which is they want to, although they want to pursue something, but they're actually also trying to lessen the suffering that they have regarding some type of diagnosis, blood test result, or experience that they're having around food eating in their body. And that's who I see every single day. There's not really a specific person.
Okay. Is it harder to lose weight or gain weight, like one or the other? Is it the same, losing weight, gaining weight, or would you say one takes more time? Or
I would say it is just as difficult to do either or,
okay.
depending on the person.
Okay,
I've,
so we're all different.
yes, I've had individuals who were absolutely having a very difficult time to gain weight. And people might be shocked about that, right? Like, what? I just go to, over there to Taco Bell or McDonald's and just, order a whole bunch of things and I gain
weight.
I look at a donut and I gain weight, right?
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, individuals, I mean, I had that experience as a child and as a teenager growing up. I was very thin and I used to have comments from a lot of people like, does your mom feed you? Like all this negative stuff as well as a very, very thin person. And I'm talking skin and bones, but
seeing you, the way you eat, I'm like,
where does it go?
You just know. I could see you stuff your face and you've looked the same since I've met you.
So I think ultimately it comes down to that individual experience, right?
Okay.
And their set of circumstances, because again, what may seem easy for somebody to do, like gain weight, could be very difficult for another person.
Okay. And for those who are watching and maybe they don't have insurance to book with you, and I think you can accept cash paying clients now. So that's something. But let's say they got off this video and they wanted to start putting something into practice like right now. Is there one piece of advice that you could give them, whether they wanted to gain weight or lose weight or maybe improve their blood work? Like, is there something that you could tell them, you know what, start doing this right now and do it for a week or book with me, but like just to do right now? Yeah.
So oftentimes I'm more interested in what someone's actually going to be able to do and willing to do versus here's the most perfect thing or idea that you should do because that's what the research says or this is what I believe. I'm just thinking like, what is the easiest thing that you can do? For example,
what are you currently doing?
Yes. And so for me, it would be like, okay, if weight loss is your desire, what's the easiest thing you can do perhaps today or tomorrow? Not next Monday, not in a month from now, not when I got to get my everything ready and nice and neat. No, what is
get my workout clothes in from Amazon.
Yeah. What is something you can actually do as soon as possible? That is actually easy. That's the difference too. That is actually easy. And so in the context of weight loss, go to your nearest scale, step on that, collect a number, do it again the next day, do it again the next day, do it again the next day. What you're going to start to see is a pattern, right? And again, we'll probably say this for another time in terms of how I encourage my clients how to use the scale and more importantly, how to interpret the scale. But my point is forget the number and the motion that comes behind the number for a second, although we have lots of topics around that as well. But the fact that you're able to do something that is in line with where you want to go, it's easy to do. And then take a whole bunch of effort, and you just collected a valuable piece of information. So
collecting the numbers for 4 days in a row will tell them whether or not they're like gaining weight or losing weight?
Potentially. Usually I encourage my clients to allow themselves, now that we're going to expand on it, 7 to 14 days before they see anything that is headed in the right direction. For example, if someone's trying to lose weight and they step on the scale daily, I encourage them very highly, and I do this for all my weight management clients, give yourself 7 to 14 days to identify the next new low number. So for example, if they're 200 pounds today, tomorrow you're going to see a number higher, guarantee without a doubt. You're healthy, you're normal, you're creating waste, you're holding on to some water. I will absolutely bet you $1,000 that your weight will go up tomorrow. And I try to normalize that for a lot of people because often it brings a lot of negative emotion when they see that scale go up from one day to the next. But again, I have a whole, we could spend a lot more longer time around that. But the idea is again, boiling it down to something that they actually could do.
So basically you want them to observe what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Observe what they're doing.
Observe.
So that would be one thing, okay? Well, they're not necessarily observing because they're actually taking some sort of action at the same time.
Got it.
So for example, it's one thing to just say, I'm going to observe like my day, but do nothing. I'm encouraging, not only are you going to observe your day, but here's the 3 things you're going to do, like your action you're actually going to take, which is step on the scale, collect a number. The second thing that I would encourage someone in the context of weight loss is go ahead and tally anytime you decide to have a meal, a snack, or a beverage throughout a 24-hour period. And then the last thing, go ahead and keep your phone on you or a fitness tracker and just monitor how many steps that you get from your normal natural day. Do not try to run a marathon the next day just to increase your numbers. Just keep everything the same, even if you're chilling on the couch like this, and just see how that looks like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and get curious about it. Like, oh, look, I notice I'm getting around 2,543 steps on Tuesday, and my average is probably around 1,800 steps on a weekly basis. And I'm obligated to a desk because I work all day. And so what do I want to do with that information? Do I want to go for a walk after work or after dinner? It's up to you. You can get curious about what you would like to do. And I usually encourage clients, don't try to make a whole bunch of adjustments. That's the traditional and conventional way, which is as soon as you learn some piece of information, you try to change 1,000 different things. But the issue with that is, once you bear that burden of changing 1,000 things, you now have to carry it day after day after day. And if it's unsustainable or unrealistic, as soon as you don't meet that ideal of those 1,000 changes, you're going to give yourself a hard time and feel a lot of negative emotion, frustration, guilt, and shame, anxiety. So I'm like, don't change anything. Take your time, okay? Just establish your baseline, understand what's going on, kind of get a feel for it. And then if you're working with a dietitian, talk to them. How do you feel about the number of steps you got?
Sure.
How did you feel about your weight trend? How did you feel about the foods that you had with the number of events that you had throughout the day? There's so much information you can extract out of those 3 basic things that I encourage my clients.
And so, is there one thing that you would like our viewers to take from this conversation?
So if there was one thing that I would encourage our viewers to take from this episode, let's say, I would just say, you've made it this far. You've made it this far eating every single day. You've made it this far getting up and moving around every single day. And you made it this far taking care of yourself and everyone else around you. So instead of trying to rush to fix yourself yesterday, take your time to uncover what might be occurring on your day-to-day basis. Get curious about things. Get curious about, your dietary pattern. Get curious about your movement. Get curious about, the things that matter to you, and have conversations with the people around you that, and let them know, like, look, I'm concerned about this that's going on, whether it's a family member, your spouse, a doctor, and be like, do you mind providing me some support while I try to figure this out? Rather than saying, I must go on this diet, I must start exercising every day, and have those harsh demands on yourself, because once life throws a curveball at you, and plot twist, it will, then the chances are that you're going to give yourself a hard time and you're going to go in this cyclical pattern is very high. And that's what I try to help my clients with. So release some of that pressure, just start to pay attention to things, have conversations with people, and then start to notice some patterns and get curious about what you would like to change from that.
I like that. So if y'all have any specific questions, maybe there are questions that we didn't cover or I didn't cover right now with Josh, but maybe you've always wanted to ask a dietitian, but you didn't have one to ask, if you could just drop it in the comment section, so that way I can ask him next time, and then we can get that question answered. And yeah, this is something we want to do and keep doing weekly if possible, but we would like to just kind of summarize every video regarding dietitian questions and nutrition questions and patterns that are sustainable with every type of lifestyle that everyone has, I guess.
Yeah.
Busy mom or single dad with kids.
Yeah, whoever you are, if you're trying to solve a problem or improve a problem, we love to help you.
Yes. Thank y'all for watching.
See y'all later.